Whether it's for athletics or aesthetics, sprinting is a valuable skill to acquire. And once you get that sprinting bug, you're sure to be asking yourself this question: how can I keep getting faster? So you've probably scoured the internet and found lots of videos, articles about how to get faster, tips and tricks on different exercises and different training methods that you can use in both the gym and on the track, right? And while these may be good and of course can help you to get faster, there's actually something that tops all of these, because without this one thing, you're not going to be able to implement all the other things that you've learned anyway. So if you're interested in finding out the number one thing you need to help you get faster year after year, then keep watching. Hi guys, and welcome back to Fit with T. I hope you guys are good. This was another video in my Sprinting ABC series, and today we're on the letter Y and we're talking about getting faster yearly. So here's the reality, guys. If you want to get faster year after year, you're gonna have to stay injury free. Yes, staying healthy, keeping free from injuries, that is the number one thing you're going to need if you want to get faster year after year, because injuries really do hamper, they really do hinder your progression process. Where you're able to progress when you're healthy, you're able to continue to push yourself out that little bit harder in the track or in the gym, you're able to consistently get that training in, that bulk of training in. When you get injured, it really does limit you, so often it can cause you to have to restart cycles over again. So rather than building, you're kind of like having to rebuild and build, right? Whereas if you can keep taking steps forward, that's going to be much more beneficial for getting faster year after year. Injuries really can be the bane of an athlete's life. So as much as you can, you want to prioritize keeping healthy. So yes, you want to be able to sprint fast a lot, all those things that we've spoken about, even in the series here on Fit with T, in the Sprinting ABC series, I've given you guys lots of different tips. And while yes, you want to be able to do those things, you have to prioritize keeping your body healthy so that you can actually get the most out of your training, get the most out of all those tips and tricks that you're actually implementing, right? So 6 ways that you can actually help yourself stay injury free. Okay, so tip number 1 is monitor your fatigue levels. Okay, so most of us are not full-time athletes, in a sense that that's not your full-time job. You actually have another job that you do. Maybe you're a student as well, maybe you're married, maybe you have kids, so you may have other responsibilities on top of training, right? And so you can be fatigued from your life in general, so keeping track of the other things that also cause you to feel tired. So you may not have the privilege of starting your day with your training, or of course that may be what you want to do, but you may not be in that place. So really monitoring your fatigue levels, your lifestyle outside of training, so how much you're able to sleep, how well you sleep, how well you're able to rest and recover. That's going to play a role as to how you feel when it comes to training, because the more fatigued your body is, you're actually in a position to be more prone to injury, right? So utilizing a training diary to see how you felt on different weeks in training. Maybe it's the 3rd week in a block, maybe you're starting to feel very fatigued, so keeping track of that so you can monitor when you feel tired. You know, how often you're training can affect how tired you feel, how much you're doing in a training session can affect how tired you feel. Maybe you need to reduce the volume in your session, maybe you need to do less in a session but more frequently, or maybe you need to do a little bit more but less often. Maybe you need a few more days in between sessions. Everyone's different, so you've got to really figure out for yourself what fatigue levels is too fatigued, if that makes sense, so that you can actually avoid injuries in the way that's necessary. So if you haven't seen my videos about the dangers of overtraining, and also my video about how rest days are important, non-training days, then make sure to check out those 2 videos, because I go into this concept in a bit more detail. Okay, so the second thing you're going to want if you want to avoid injuries, if you want to stay injury free, is steady, systematic, gradual growth. Okay, so yes, progression is key, and I've got a whole video about overload and progression and how you need those if you want to progress year upon year. That's definitely something you're going to need, but you're going to not be able to progress year upon year if you are injured, right? So to avoid injury, you need to make sure that progression is steady and systematic, it's gradual in its growth, right? So steady, systematic, gradual growth, that's what you want. You don't want to go from 0 to 100. Injuries like, you know, shin splint and Achilles, a lot of times those are like overused injuries, so a lot of times it's because we've increased the load or the volume too quickly. So you really want to think about how you're progressing your training, making sure that it's little by little, right? So next, you want to make sure that you focus on your technique before you increase speed, before you increase weights. So we're talking about both on the track and in the gym, right? Honing in on that technique before you try to increase speed, before you try to increase volume, weight. Focus on technique, because having proper technique a lot of times is going to help you minimize injuries, reduce your risk of injury. So let me know in the comments which of these tips that I'm giving you are the ones that you haven't implemented that's caused you to get injured, if you have been injured, right? Or maybe something that I've missed. Let me know that in the comment section below as well. Okay, so number 4, we're talking addressing your imbalances, okay? You need to address your imbalances, your weaknesses, if you want to avoid injuries, okay? Because a lot of time, yeah, you may be strong, but if one side is significantly stronger than the other, what happens is your body starts to compensate. So you want to think about those minor muscles, think about things like stability, things that you don't necessarily think about when it comes to big lifts, say. Trying to address those is really going to help you to address imbalances. I know for me, myself, when I first came back to athletics and when I was training with Speedworks at the time, that's one of the things that we addressed, and that's really helped me to actually get stronger and actually be able to get faster from where I was when I came back to athletics after a longer break. My left side, I believe it was very weak in comparison to my right. My hamstrings were very weak in comparison to my quads as well. So things like that, addressing those have been actually one of the things that helped me to get back on track, get faster within that season. So that's where things like the gym can be very useful, you know, strength and conditioning, but also thinking about not just doing bilateral exercises, so exercises where you always use 2 sides at the same time, so 2 legs or 2 arms, but also trying to incorporate unilateral exercises so you can actually see those imbalances, which might be able to stay hidden when you do double-sided exercises, okay? So thinking about those things and actually addressing those issues can actually help you avoid injuries and stay healthy for longer so that you can get faster year after year. So before I get into the last 2 points, guys, if this video is being helpful for you, you're getting value from this video, please give it a big thumbs up to let me know, to let the algorithm know, to let more athletes like you can see this video. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe and join the tribe so you can be informed whenever I upload a new video. I try to upload new videos every Friday to the best of my ability. So if you're enjoying it, like I said, subscribe. Number 5, you want to improve your range of motion if you want to help yourself avoid injuries, okay? So if you're overly stiff, or if you have, again, imbalances in stiffness, it can actually, again, cause injury, okay? So you don't need to be a ballerina, you don't need to be a gymnast in terms of your flexibility, right? But for example, let's say you want to increase your stride length. If you don't have good range of motion in your hips, your hamstrings, in your lower back, if you're very tight, you can actually cause yourself injury. If you have very tight calves, for example, again, a risk of injury. So tight muscles are inactive muscles. Tight muscles are just only going to get more tense, and you're going to be asking for injury. You're not going to be able to actually get the full benefit of power out of them that you want to. So keeping your muscles loose, keeping your hips and your joints loose enough for what you need to do. Like I said, you don't need to be a contortionist, right? You don't have to be so flexible. However, increasing your range of motion is going to be beneficial. Even when you're doing exercises like in the gym, for example, it depends on where you are in a season, right? But the more range of motion you're able to accomplish in a movement, a lot more times you're able to recruit more muscle fibers, more muscle groups, and so you might be able to get more strength gains if that's where you're at, trying to build strength, for example. So thinking about increasing your range of motion, because a lack of range of motion can be a cause for injury. So if you need a stretch routine video, I've actually got 2 on my channel, I think 2 or even maybe more. Check those out. If you need to improve your range of motion, then holding your stretches, getting yourself, you know, massages when you need them to loosen up muscles, giving yourself the proper recovery so that your muscles are not tight and are not restricted for when you come back to training, so that you can keep progressing year upon year. Okay, so similarly to that, you want to implement a proper warm-up routine and also a proper cool down, okay? And so yes, I know some people are like advocates for not warming up, but the warm-up is not only physical, it actually also has a mental benefit. And a lot of times, if you're not mentally awake, mentally prepared, mentally focused on what you're doing, that can also be a cause for injury. So a warm-up is a great place to prepare your body for what you're going to do, both physically and mentally, okay? And so I do have a sprinters warm-up routine video that you can actually use that's going to help you if you're not sure what to do. If you don't have a set routine for yourself, that's somewhere that you can start, and again, adapt it to yourself and your own needs, your own personal problem areas, you know, implement little self-management things that you need personally. So the warm-up, you can use the warm-up for, like I said, pulse raising, mobility, even activating certain muscle groups, because a lot of time, especially if you have like a day job with a student that sits down all day, you don't utilize your glutes, your hips are not open. So using your warm-up as well to activate certain areas, to wake up those muscles, hamstrings, glutes, stuff like that. So I've got a number of videos about helping you to warm up, so check that out. And similarly, when it comes to cooling down after your session, you really want to make sure that you cool down properly, bring your temperature right back down, stretch out those muscles and bring them back to a place of rest, right? If you just had a really hard lactic session, you're not just going to go and sit down and cramp up in a car or whatever it is, yeah? Allow the blood to flow to help with the recovery process so that you can actually come back to training the next time feeling ready again, as opposed to feeling so tight, stiff, restricted, sore because you didn't actually warm down properly, you didn't actually cool down properly. So as someone who's experienced a lot of injuries over the years, unfortunately, I can see how implementing these tips can can actually help you to prevent injury, and I can see where not implementing some of these tips have actually caused me to be injured, right? So I hope you guys can learn from my mistakes and actually implement some of these tips that I've actually given you to help you get faster year upon year and avoid a plateau and that frustration that so often comes with not being able to continue to progress, not being able to continue to push on. But actually, another thing I've learned over the years, apart from these 6 tips that I've mentioned, is that actually utilizing a training diary is a really useful way to help you overcome injuries, avoid injuries, minimize injuries, right? So if you haven't seen this video, then I really encourage you to check that out, where I talk about how a training diary can help you avoid injuries, all of that good stuff. And if you want to hear a story about the devastating effect of not implementing these tips that I've mentioned, then check out this video over here, and I'll see you guys on another Friday. Bye guys.